Hey,
Hello.
Terry.
Welcome, Yuri.
Neil, thank you. Great to be
So
here.
Terry just called you an elder statesman, which makes us decrepit and 1 foot from the grave. So let's start with that. Ask your question, Terry.
I need to know, Yuri, who is older? Is it months, weeks? What do we got? You or Alan Bevan?
I think I'm about 5 months older than Alan.
All right. I was correct. An elder statesman. Here we go. The father of BC piping.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you go from being the kid to the young guy to the medium guy to, I guess, old guy. It goes pretty fast.
So your first exposure to Andrew Bonar then would have been as a kid player coming out of the States then, yeah?
Absolutely. So it was a really big deal as a young piper from Oregon to come up to the indoor. And I remember coming to the indoor, and it was one of my very first years that I think I won a couple trophies in novice. I won the most promising amateur piper, which was a really big deal for me. And I think it was maybe that year that Andrew won, he won the open class or something like that. But I do remember seeing him on the big stage at the indoor as a young kid. And he was one of these, icons of the professional class of the SFU pipe band that, I wanted to be like Andrew, and definitely one of my heroes. And then it was one of the great joys of my piping career to be able to compete with Andrew and to be able to play in the band with him. And we became great friends and, shared, we stayed in the same house at Inverness, and, a great friend and a great player.
Was he ever inclined to give like tips if you asked him things about, I don't know, about playing as a professional or playing in the circle in the band? Or did he keep to himself and just like keep the friendship social?
Well, no, he would give advice, but not in that way. And I always look at guys like Andrew who would lead primarily by example, always playing really well, always, always showing up. He had a fantastic attendance record in terms of going around the games and doing the knockouts and just never giving up. And I really admired that. And I looked to that as an example for how to carry oneself as a piper. Not one of these guys who would show up once in a while when he felt like it, but he was always there. He was always going for that grand aggregate once that thing got in there. Just the consistency.
There's no doubt. You think Boney loved to play and Boney loved to compete.
He loved to play. He loved to compete. He was a great competitor to play against because he would play well, and he was always playing at a high standard, but a gracious competitor as well. A great guy to compete against. Never any weirdness, never anything about his competitive mindset for piping that would get in the way of being a friend. Always really supportive. Always the first guy to put the hand out when you got a prize. And when you're a young person coming up and playing against your heroes, and then you get that occasional prize where you actually get a first or place ahead of one of these guys, it's a huge, humongous deal for you personally. And then to have a guy like Andrew who comes right out with the handshake is, that's a big moment.
Was that a factor in the tunes that you picked for this event in 2020 when you played? I know that, Terry's going to ask you about the Peever thing, but just generally in the light music stuff, was there an influence of Boney in that, or were you trying to evoke some of the flavors of the way he played?
Yeah, so, I think, this Boney event is a really special event because it's a competition, but it's more than that. It's honoring our friend, and it also has this charitable aspect to it. Also, I think of it as a performance as well. It's because there's an audience and there's the online streaming audience. I'm thinking it more of like a mini recital. So it's because we have a certain amount of time, it gives you, the opportunity to choose different tunes. My favorite tune that Andrew wrote is that Odosa Tony. And to me, like when I hear that tune, that is just like the quintessential Andrew Bonar because it's really musical and really different. And, coming up as a young player, listening to the SFU CDs, that was on there, one of Andrew's solos. And for younger players, before MP3s, before YouTube, before all this stuff, it was like getting those CDs. That was your lifeline to what was happening. The new CD that came out, the new World CD, maybe getting some tape recordings from Pipeline in Scotland. There just wasn't the access that we have now So to get one of those CDs and you would just listen to it over and over, and you'd listen to those solos and you just would know every tune. And, you know, one of my favorite solos was Boney's solo with the Dosa Tony on it. I love that tune.
Great example. A Dosa Tony was such a cool tune of rhythmic adventure and building in tempo, and very exciting, very unique. And so glad that you played that. And, you know, people can look forward to hearing that again tonight. And tell us about Macintosh's Limit, or not Macintosh's, I Got a Kiss of the King's Hand. And, you know, your connection with that, and, you know, Boney's connection with that. Is it true that you play that every time at Boney's event?
I have. I played it every year. And I cannot think about, I can't think of another pibroch that is connected more strongly to one person than that tune. The first time I heard it played was by Boney. He always played it. That was like his tune. Mm-hmm. And you knew that if he got it picked, whether it was the Enumclaw Games or in the Cairn at the indoor, you knew he was going to do a good job and he was going to be in the hunt with it. And he did do a really, really great job with it. I always think of him with that tune. And, you know, it's probably, it's right up there in my top 3 of favorite tunes to play. Beautiful melody, lots of really interesting things that you can do. You never get bored playing it. And, you know, this Boney Invitational tune selection process, there's always that pibroch element. And as long as I'm playing at the Boney, I'll be playing that tune. It's a meaningful moment. You know, there aren't, you know, when you're competing, you're not really trying to get into this like emotional state typically. You know, you're thinking technical stuff, you're thinking like, you know, presenting this performance that you've put months of preparation into to try to do the best job you can. The Boney Invitational is different because there is that connection to a person and to the audience. You know, Andrew's family sitting there. So it's really a uniquely special competitive event for me. And actually the competition aspect is secondary to the performance aspect and that emotional connection that I feel every time I play. And so it's a cool and different kind of goosebumps feeling that you usually don't get when you're up there on the boards.
That's brilliant. And, you know, it was a great crowd that night, right? And you must have got a nice sort of feedback from that. But you had I understand you were behind the very cool ending to the evening. I was, to my surprise, tell us what happened there, because it was pretty unique. It was a lot of camaraderie going on there. And can you explain that?
Yeah. So one of the cool things about this event is it's, you know, sort of the top players from the previous year, the open class and the BC Pipers, and then we get invited to do this thing. And I've talked about the sort of that connection to the Andrew and the Bonar family, and also the special aspect of, you know, doing something good for the charity. The venue has a big impact on a competition. You know, there's competitions around the world. There's sort of the history and there's the prestige. Maybe there's some prize money. Having a great panel makes it better. Having great competitors you're playing against makes it feel great. But when you're in a historic venue, if it's at the Glenfinnan Games where you're on the shores of Loch Shiel and you can just feel the history coming out of the stones, or if you're on Eden Court Theatre, all these things they just add to the specialness of that moment. And the Boney has been great every year, but I thought last year moving to that venue was just fantastic. It just had this sense of history and of connection to Canada and to the military and to Scotland and to history. And I mean, the physical surroundings are just incredible. I mean, just the paneling and the trophies and the paraphernalia, and it's a really amazing event. Now, some of these competitions I've been to, like at London, they have this tradition where the pipers will all play out at the end of the night. And it's just a cool opportunity for all these soloists to play together. All right, let's get the pipes up, and we do a little bit of tuning. We don't worry too much about it. At the end of the night, it's sort of a fun release. And I've been at other few events where they do that, sort of all the pipers come out. So I talked to the guys and I thought, you know, this would be, I think, a really fun way to sort of put a cap at the end of the night, all play together. It'll be fun. Let's pick some tunes. We'll maybe pick a tune or two that had a connection to Andrew, and a way to, again, make it a little different and special and more relaxed than your typical solo competition, which is it's a very solitary pursuit. You know, solo competition, which I've done for many years and love it, it's different than band because it's all it's all on you. You get all of the accolades if you do well, and you suffer the consequences if you don't do well. But the Boney is a different, feeling to me, and I think to everybody who's there. And I thought it was just sort of a really cool, fun way to do it. And of course, Alan, who's, sort of our top competitor in our region, I thought he should be pipe major, and he's pipe major of the band now. And I was real honored where he said, no, you take it. So that was a really cool, really special moment.
So you came in, let's introduce your set by telling us that you opened with some 3/4s, I think, right? What was the first couple of tunes you played? And then we'll play your clip.
Oh gosh, I don't remember off the top of my head. Sorry.
So that's going to be a prize for the person who sends in to Tartantown the names of the tunes that Yori played to open his set.
Fantastic.
Yori, some really great storytelling there. It brings a lot of truth to what the event's all about, and to hear it from you as a competitor and you, a senior player in the BC Pirates, is fantastic. And we thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this with us today. And we look forward to catching up for real in 2022. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Neil.
Cheers, Yori.
All right. All the best.